Have you ever wanted to make pastrami at home, but you don't know how to do it? Or maybe you're just a little bit nervous the way I was? This is the video for you. Stay tuned. All right, let's get started on our smoked brisket pastrami. First thing we gotta do is we gotta roast up our pickling spices. So I've got my induction burner set at 50%. If you don't have an induction burner, you're doing this on your stove, just set your burner to medium. All right, so the pickling spices that I'm gonna be using, I just picked up from the Big A store. Check out the link below, pick one up if you want to, but they make it really easy by making all of your pickling spices that you need for pastrami in one bottle. So I'm gonna add 1 cup of this pickling spice. Make sure you give it a good shake. So this pickling spice has everything you need to brine your brisket: cinnamon, allspice, mustard seed, coriander, bay leaves, ginger, chilies, cloves, black pepper, mace, and cardamom. So into the skillet they go. Be careful not to burn your pickling spice. You just want to roast this up a little bit. All right, so that only took about a couple of minutes. I'm gonna turn my burner off. Man, it smells absolutely amazing in this house already. All right, so next step, I'm just gonna add our pickling spices into my mortar and pestle. All right, so we're just gonna crush our seeds here real quick. Just a rough mix. You don't have to turn this into a powder. All right, so I'm gonna turn my cast iron pan back on. I'm gonna add 1 quart of water. We're gonna add our pickling spices. I'm gonna add 1 cup of kosher salt. I'm also gonna add 1 cup of brown sugar. Now, if you don't have brown sugar, just use regular granulated sugar. I'm gonna add a cinnamon stick. So the last ingredient is our curing salt. Now, if you research the internet and read some books, there's gonna be all sorts of information on how much of this pink curing salt to add, but we're gonna set the standard here today. So in order to figure out how much curing salt you're gonna need, first you have to weigh the water. I'm using 2 gallons of water. Those 2 gallons weigh 16.32 pounds. My brisket weighs 16.42 pounds, total weight of 37.74 pounds. Now stay with me on this part. You can even grab your calculator if you want and follow along. So I take my total weight, 32.74 pounds, that's the water and the brisket, multiply that times 454 grams. The reason we do that is there's 454 grams in a pound. Since we have 32.74 pounds, I'm gonna multiply that times 454 grams. So the total you should get is 14,863.96 grams. Then at that point, it's real simple to figure out how much curing salt we need. Just like on a dry brine, it's 0.25%. So take 14,863.96 grams, multiply that times 0.25%, and the number you come up with should be 37.16 grams of curing salt. All right, so the brine is warming up nicely. Next, I'm gonna add 37.16 grams of curing salt. Give it a good mix. Make sure the salt and the sugar and the curing salt is well dissolved. All right, so the brine is ready, so I'm just gonna move this aside. All right, so here's my bucket that I'm gonna be using to brine the brisket. The water that's inside the bucket plus the water that I use for the brine equals 2 gallons of water. So I'm just gonna pour the brine into my bucket. All right, give this a good mix. I'm gonna pop this in my fridge for about an hour. Let this brine cool off, and I'll bring you guys right back. All right, so the pastrami brine has been in the fridge for about an hour, so it's nice and chilled. Next, let's get our brisket ready. Remember that our brisket weighs 16.42 pounds, and this brisket is a USDA choice brisket from 1855 beef. And check out that marbling. One thing I absolutely love about 1855 is that they only use Black Angus beef, and the quality is always excellent. All right, so I'm not gonna be trimming anything off of this brisket. The only thing I'm gonna do is dry off the surface. So let me just take it out of the plastic here. All right, that's good right there. Just gonna move this aside real quick. All right, so here's my brine. Just gonna put the brisket in there, point side down. And we'll see if we got enough liquid to cover up that brisket. Oh yeah, that's perfect right there. All right, so the brisket is fully submerged, but just for cheap insurance, I'm going to put a bowl in there just to hold that brisket down a bit, just like that. I'm going to cover it up. This is going to go in my fridge for 7 days. Now, if you were just doing the flat, you could get away with 5 days, but since we have the point and the flat, or the whole pack of brisket, that brisket is really thick. It's going to need 7 days to brine. We'll see you guys soon. Stay tuned. All right, and just like that, the brisket has been brining for 7 days. I'm going to pull it out and see what it's looking like. Should be a very pale, almost tan color. Look at that. All right, so here's the brisket. Now, we do have a lot of seasonings on this brisket, and we also have a lot of that brine on the outside of this brisket. So I'm going to rinse it under cold water in my sink, and I'll bring you guys right back. All right, so I've got the brisket rinsed off, took out a lot of that excess salt and seasonings. So I'm just going to pat it dry with some paper towels. So if you guys have ever eaten pastrami, you know that it's pretty salty, and that's why rinsing it is pretty important to get rid of that excess salt. Now, on my seasoning, I will not be using any salt, and you'll see that here in a minute. All right, let's mix up our seasonings. I'm starting with 1 cup of black pepper, 2 tablespoons of garlic, 2 tablespoons of mustard seed, and 2 tablespoons of smoked paprika. Give that a good mix. Again, we are not adding any additional salt. All right, let's season up our pastrami. I'm going to be using some of this Brew City beer mustard as a binder. Look at that. Make sure you apply enough of this mustard as well. All right, apply your seasonings. Remember, this is a big piece of meat, so apply enough rub. Pat that rub in. All right, season up that fat cap. Don't forget your edges. All right, I've got the pastrami all seasoned up. Let's head outside and fire up the smoker. All right, so I've got my Lone Star grill set at 215 degrees, and on this cook, I'm gonna be using smoking pecan pellets. These pellets are made with 100% pecan shells, no wood, no fillers, no artificial flavors, nothing but 100% pecan shells. Check them out at the link below and get yourself a nice discount. You can see it right here, nothing but thin blue smoke. And this smoker is going to be like this throughout the entire night. All right, let's load up our brisket. Here's this beautiful brisket. It's a big boy. Again, we're going to be smoking this fat cap up, and the point is towards the right side of the smoker because that's where the fire pot is. So I'm going to slide the shelf back in. Look at the amount of smoke that you get when you pair up Lone Star grills with smoking pecan pellets. This is unheard of. So I'm going to shut the door. All right, so I'm going to be smoking this brisket overnight, 215 degrees. I will see you guys tomorrow morning. Stay tuned. All right, and just like that, it's the very next day. Our pastrami has been smoking for 9.5 hours. Let's take a look at it. Oh my. That right there is a gorgeous looking brisket. That fat is starting to render a little bit. Let's get an internal temperature. On the point, we're sitting at 149 degrees. Still got a long way to go. And the flat is 142 degrees. So one thing that I am going to do is I'm going to spritz the pastrami with apple cider vinegar and water, mix it 50-50. All right, so I'm going to slide the brisket back in. I'm going to increase the temperature on the smoker to 225 degrees, and I'll bring you guys right back. All right, so we're 12.5 hours into our cook. Let's take a look at this pastrami. Look at that. This smoke never gets old. So I think after 12.5 hours of low and slow cooking using smoking pecan pellets, we got really nice bark and enough smoky flavor on that brisket. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it, but I wanna get an internal temperature. We're sitting at 161 on the point and 154, 155 on the flat. Remember that we didn't trim this brisket, so there's plenty of fat for moisture. So there's no need to add any tallow to our foil. So I'm going to wrap it up. Looks like I'm going to have to double foil this. All right, back in the smoker she goes. Just like that. Slide our shelf back in. All right, I'm gonna shut the door. I'm also gonna increase the temperature on the smoker to 250 degrees, and I'll see you when the pastrami is ready. Stay tuned. All right, so the pastrami is ready, and the total cook time was 14 and a half hours. Now I did have it sitting on my counter resting for 2 hours, just covered in foil, as you can see. So let's unwrap this pastrami and see what we've got. You know, I was really surprised of the weight of the pastrami even after it's already cooked. And I'm thinking that a lot of the brine worked its way into the brisket, making it extra juicy. And check out that color. The aroma in my kitchen is madness right now. All right, let's get right to it. Now, I'm not gonna slice this like a brisket. I'm gonna try to slice it kind of thin or thinner than a brisket slice. So I'm gonna start right here on the tip. Oh my goodness. Got a nice color throughout the entire slice. Look at this. And it's still really, really juicy. All right, that should be enough for a sandwich. So I'm just gonna move this brisket aside real quick. All right, so I've got my induction burner here with my cast iron comal. Just gonna add a little bit of butter. We got some rye bread. We're gonna toast this up real quick. All right, let's make a quick Reuben sauce. I've got some Thousand Island dressing, a little bit of horseradish, about a teaspoon. Mix that together, and that's it, super simple. So I've got my toasted rye bread, add dressing on both sides. All right, we got a couple of slices of Swiss cheese. Got our freshly smoked pastrami. Just gonna layer it on there. Look at that. Is that enough or should we go with more? Let's go with a couple more slices. I've got some sauerkraut that I've already drained. That way your bread doesn't get all soggy. All right, let's put the top on it. All right, let's slice into this sandwich. You guys ready for this? Look at that. Let's give this a try. All right, let's give this pastrami a try and see how we did. Now there's a little spot, I don't know if you guys can see it, where the brine didn't get to the inside of the brisket, but that's okay. It's not gonna affect the flavor, but check out how juicy it is. Nice and thin, perfectly seasoned. Here we go. I gotta tell you, the flavor of this pastrami is absolutely amazing. Really good smoky flavor, perfectly seasoned, and my favorite part, it's not salty. That pastrami right there is the best pastrami that I've ever made, and I cannot wait to dig into this Reuben sandwich. Check that out. I'm going in. I'm speechless, guys. That pastrami by itself is amazing, but this Reuben sandwich is on another level. I hope you guys enjoyed this easy pastrami video, and if you're a fan of pastrami like I am, follow this recipe to a T and you'll have some amazing pastrami. If this is your first time to my channel, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up. Until next time, Joe with Smokin Joe's Pit BBQ. See ya.